So we talked now in 4 episodes about transformation of companies through technological disruption and what should boards pay attention to. So if I'm thinking, to try to summarize that and to, the most important insight, I would say that technological disruption is rare a problem of technology, but very often it's a problem of governance. So I have seen that boards are struggling not because they don't understand the technology or the need to change, but disruption challenges how board operates, how board are structured, how they govern risk, how capital is allocated, and how they deal with culture, with talent, but also with the topic of power and power shift. Here the conclusion is that, in my opinion, that boards are structurally more distant from weak signals. And the governance relies on aggregated information, we said, on formal reporting, also backward-looking indicators. But the disruption happens at the edge through customer behavior, which is changing, new entrants, unattractive economics, and this is long before it became visible in the board packs. In my opinion, it starts with the acknowledgement that this might be a blind spot by design, and then to try to institutionalize it. And what I mean by this is to treat this technological disruption as a standing strategic risk. So it's not an IT topic, it's a strategic risk to be included in the heat map, to be discussed along with the assumptions on a regular basis. The assumptions need to be challenged and reviewed on a regular basis. And to start to put questions which are all around startups dynamic, customer dynamic, competitive landscape, and the competitive positioning of the company, and not only just to talk about the performance. Well, the board should not manage the technology, but they should own the consequences of the technological change. Because here they have the authority which lies in setting the strategic direction, approving the capital allocation, and also ensure that the organization is structurally prepared for the change. So, of course, boards will not debate or should not debate too much on technological and technical solutions, but to make sure that you have the investment and the investment in the new technology is very clearly linked to the future customer value and the future differentiation of the company. So in the future economics. Treating the transformation initiatives like something peripheric or like something experimental that might be a failure, concentrating around some pilots, but without a commitment to create a learning organization, commitment on the sufficient capital allocation, there will be no real transformation. We had also an episode where we talked about why the strategy usually break before technology. And here again, I want to come on the topic of assumptions and how important it is to make sure that you're reviewing your strategic assumption, because also protecting too much a very profitable core business without evolving it, without transforming it, might lead that you as a company miss the relevance in the future. That shifts the discussion from forecast to fundamentals, and shifts the discussion around customers, around regulation, and around competitive dynamics. Where a transformation does become real for the board, at capital allocation. That's really the moment where the strategy shifts, from narrative to consequence. And here we create all the consequences on the financial side, on the organizational side, but also on the human side. One of the most difficult decisions is to approve a strategy that hurts in the short term, but serves the company in the long term. That's probably the hardest board decision. And here we discussed about the role of the culture of the company in making that transformation sustainable. We discussed about the power structure of the company, which sometimes quietly can pull the organization back to the old way or to the old technology. Because very often the organizations are optimized for stability, for reliability. Very much it's around the margin protection. So this is exactly the opposite, which is happening when you are adopting a new technology, especially if it is a disruption technology. So this is the opposite of what an early stage transformation requires. So that's why having this in mind already from start helps making the transformation sustainable. We discussed also if it is a talent problem. Yes, like always in a company, specifically when you are moving technologically from one technology to the other, or you are adding. Not always it's a move. It's an addition of technology or layers of the technology. Here, what I try to convey is the idea of having very coherent strategy and not allowing dysfunctional organization, conflictual organization. I have heard sometimes that internal conflicts might be good for performance, for a performance culture. In my opinion, yes, in some extent. Yes, competition is always good. So if it is seen as competition, yes. But if it is seen as goals which are competing in between, or even, the one goal being inconsequent with another one, then I don't think it is a healthy competition. So aligning, for me, it's important to align the incentives and to manage in a very constructive way the coexistence between the old and the new, put it simple. I think so, because as I said before, in my opinion, boards are really shaping culture, even if they are not aware of the fact that they are shaping the culture. It's through what they reward and also what they don't reward, what they tolerate, what they protect, especially when acting under pressure from the market. If the organization sees a board which is reacting with nervosity at a short-term miss, that will reinforce, for instance, risk avoidance. So even you can then talk about calling for bold transformation if at the same time you give the signal of being risk avoidance. It's not helping the transformation. So that's a big role the board is playing in shaping the culture. I think you can reconcile that by owning the trade-off instead of delegating those trade-offs to the management. So the boards are defining the transition logic. They are protecting also, they need to protect also the management during predictable profitability dips. What I said before in being very clear about the time frame, very, very explicit about that, communicating a credible multi-year value narrative. And again, what I said before, market punish uncertainty much more than they punish a temporary margin pressure. First, to be aware that there are structural blind spots in the governance, how a board is designed not to pick up the very weak signals in the organizations, which are happening sometimes to layers which are 2-3 layers below the top management. If the board is aware of these possible blind spots, then they can put in place a governance which is embedding a periodical and repeated review of the assumptions, strategic assumptions, and specific strategic assumptions which are behind the core business. Then the inflation point with the capital allocation, which is for me the real signal of the priority. And then also what cultural signals and what cultural messages the board is giving by rewarding, by the incentive plans, by the risk avoidance, yes or not, the signals they are giving to the organization. So for me, the technological disruption does, of course, not require that the board became a technologist, but it requires that the board are the long-term stewards of the relevance of the company.